The microphone smells disinfected. Lemon. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Continuing this evening with Canto 10, Chapter 6, the Putana Lila story. Looking around the room, I'm thinking you're all quite familiar with the pastime. We've gotten as far as Putana has entered Vrindavan. She was sent by Kamsa, and not wanting to frighten everybody with her hideous form, she's assumed a very, very, very beautiful form. And we're going to hear a description of her wonderful form and how she moved around Vrindavan searching for little children to kill. So this is now texts 5 and 6. Her hips were full, her breasts were large and firm, seeming to overburden her slim waist. And she was dressed very nicely. Her hair, adorned with a garland of malika flowers, was scattered about her beautiful face. Her earrings were more brilliant, and she smiled very attractively, glancing upon everyone. Her beauty drew the attention of all the inhabitants of Braja, especially the men. When the gopis saw her, they thought that the beautiful goddess of fortune, holding a lotus flower in her hand, had come to see her husband, Krishna. I don't see Krishna's name in the Sanskrit here, but this is Prabhupada's translation. Seeing that beautiful woman with marks of lotus on her hands, the gopis concluded that she was the embodiment of all wealth and jewels. She must have seen to come to see her husband Narayana, the Ishtadev of Nanda Maharaj. Putana had a broad waist and breasts contrasting to her thin waist. This is Vishwanath's commentary. She was attractive. Vanita. She was so attractive that the Brajvasis let her enter the inner chambers of their houses without obstruction. So this is plural. So it's not just she went to Nanda Maharaj's house, but other places. Jiva Goswami writes, jasmines. I hear the recording of Prabhupada chanting japa. Jasmines That's the Malika flowers. Jasmines, bound together, were tied in her hair, making her very beautiful. Her face was decorated with locks of hair, shining with the effulgence of her swinging earrings. She was acting attractively. Mano Haritim. The gopis thought she was the wealth of the universe, Shriyam, since she held lotuses in her hands. Pati means a husband, but Sridhar Swami does not accept that meaning, since later she is described as having motherly affection. This is Sanatan Goswami. Why would she come? She seemed to be looking for her husband. The word iva, or as if, indicates it was not actually so, or like Lakshmi, she had come to see the protector, Patim, of the gopis, since Krishna was the son of Nanda. Or the gopis thought that the woman was like Lakshmi, coming from her planet to see Narayana. This appearance was possible because of her astonishing beauty and skillful dress. There she is with her jasmine flowers in her hair and lotus flowers in her hand, and the other golden ornaments here and there, earrings and this and that. Here's the description of each of the items. Malika Pushpa. Her braided hair was interspersed with jasmine flowers. She had a very thin waist. She was very attractively dressed. Effulgent ear ornaments, and a glowing face, a beautiful artificial smile, Sundara Hasya Katoksha Vilokana, and she was holding a lotus in her hand. This is now Jiva Goswami continuing. Everyone wondered about the identity of Putana. Is she the presiding demigoddess of Vrindavan? Is she the goddess of fortune? Is she a creeper of lightning, appearing without a cloud? Is she a friend of the Kumuda flowers blossoming under the moon? The innocent cowherd women thought that she was a goddess of fortune appearing in Vrindavan with a lotus flower in her hand. They wondered if she was the goddess Bhagavati, Gauri, or is she the presiding deity of the material elements, Durga? Is she the consort of Indra, the queen of Varuna, the consort of Agni Dev? Has she appeared to give affection to my son? Yashoda wondered, am I Krishna's mother? Or is she? Can you turn it around the other way? Yeah. So there was some question in the morning class. How did she get away with coming in and people let her go here and there, and so we're getting a picture? Putana had mystic powers, and shape-changing was one of those mystic powers, and she selected from the menu of possible shapes. Very beautiful. So astoundingly beautiful. The residents of Vrindavan were struck with awe. at her beauty, her ornaments, everything, which was exactly what was the plan. Here's a nice description from Ananda Vrindavan Champu. I hope you appreciate getting this, like a snapshot from the different authors or acharyas who are writing about this pastime, because it unfolds similarly. Many different descriptions coming our way. Here's Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Seeing the extraordinary elegance of Putana, the Brajbasis openly mocked the famous society girls of heaven, saying, "Oh, Urvashi, you are the best of the heavenly damsels, but in the presence of Putana, you are no more than a beggar. Oh, Alambushe, there is no use maintaining the high bamboos of your pride any longer, for it has now been crushed. Oh, Rambe, very soon you'll become the consort of a frog. Oh, Gitachi, your fame, which can be compared to a line of melted butter, is now as valuable as a crematorium covered by water." This poetry. "Oh, Minake, all my followers now laugh heartily at you. Oh, from Bolche, a rushing current has now washed away the treasure of your beauty. Oh, Chitraleke, your captivating form appears now like lines in a painting. Oh, Tilotame, your glorious fame has dwindled to nil." Unquote. Everyone wondered about the identity of Putana. The Brajbasis thought, is this lady the presiding demigoddess of Vrindavan? Is she the goddess of fortune of the three worlds? Is she a creeper of lightning appearing without a cloud? Is she a friend of the Kumuda flowers blossoming under the moon? No Gopa or Gopi stopped Putana, whose beauty seemed to eclipse the demigoddesses Sachi, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Rambha, and Rati. Because Krishna's pastimes are so celebrated, it's nice to hear how they're appreciated here. This is Jiva Goswami's Gopal Champu on the section dealing with the killing of Putana. As a snake puts a mongoose on its lap, thinking it is a mouse, Putana fearlessly put Krishna on her lap, thinking of easily killing him. So, we're going to be introduced now to Snigdhakanta, in case you don't know. Snigdhakanta is one of two brothers who are the narrators of Gopal Champu. The scene is Krishna has finished killing all the demons, the final one being just before going back to Vrindavan was Dantavakra. And he's entered Vrindavan in cowherd boy attire, looking like a 16-year-old young boy. And he spends 2 months in Vrindavan. During those 2 months in Vrindavan, two of Narada's disciples, named Snigdhakanta and Madhukanta, are introduced to everybody. And they proceed, something like Love and Kush, they proceed in narrating the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. So it's a back and forth between the two, Snigdhakanta, Madhukanta. The chapters unfold with every morning They come together at Nanda Maharaj's home or palace, and all the prominent Brijbasis are there, and they ask questions sometimes of the narrators, but mainly it's the narrators interacting. So Snigdhakanta said, "Oh, elder brother, why did the two mothers not prevent this unknown woman and not consider her identity?" That's Snigdhakanta. Now his brother's going to show up. There's Madhukanta. Said, "It was previously said that Yogamaya was the cause, and Putana used a tricky means to execute her task. When Putana entered the village, she took a form like a pot ornamented with gold bells, hiding her nature as a snake. Her breasts were covered with tears and flowed with milk. In this way, she bewildered the two women." So it's her charm, it's her mystic ability to bewilder, and most importantly, she couldn't do anything, or nobody can do anything in Vrindavan without the influence of Yogamaya. We've been mentioning this, and it's part of the puzzle or mystery of the Putana pastime, which is, as a pastime, all of this happens, even her coming and searching and finding and everything, it's all being arranged by Krishna's own potency, his Yogamaya potency. That is to say, he wanted to deliver her. And it's another part of the mystery. Well, what about me? What about everybody else? Because a lot of everybody else's that aren't wicked, like Putana. He doesn't need a reason. One of the explanations one might offer, which is something that our acharyas confirm, and that is, in her previous life, who she was. She was, in some versions, either the sister or the daughter of Bali Maharaj. And when she saw Vamana, she had a desire to be the mother, to suckle or to feed this little boy, Vamana. Vamana, recognizing her desire, honored her desire. She didn't say anything, but he said, "Whatever you're desiring at the moment will come to pass." And so he kept his word. And she was the sister or the daughter of Bali, who was a dear devotee of the Lord, and so she gets mercy like Bali got mercy, just because of that relationship. Which means any one of us, if we become elevated devotees, Krishna's mercy goes to those who are, just by being family members, become benefited, become dear to Krishna, and others connected with you become dear to Krishna. That's described all over the place in the scriptures. But bottom line, he wanted. He doesn't need a reason to want. He made she was a demon, so she was one of the personalities. Aside from the pastime of her trying to come kill him, it was one of the promises to relieve the burden of the earth of demoniac personalities, demoniac kings, but those in the service of a demoniac king are part of the promise. So for all these reasons, she gets some mercy. But she doesn't get mercy like the residents of Vrindavan get mercy, because they participate in loving pastimes with him. And that's the greatest mercy. So we're going to hear, not just now, in the Gopal Champu, there's a section where, this is the section, where Putana then speaks with Mother Yashoda and Rohini. That's an interesting painting. There's Yashoda and Rohini on the left side, and it looks like that's Putana holding baby Krishna in the right side of the painting. Here's the text from Gopal Champu. With a choked voice, she, Putana, said, "O Yashoda, you have become very hard because of many duties. Therefore, Rohini, with steady affection for your son, has been of great benefit. Keeping the tender child on the bed, you must carry out many duties, and you do not pay full attention to the child. One keeps the life air in the heart. What to speak of keeping this child dearer than the life air in the heart? Your hearts are hard, like those of demons. Oh, as Lakshmi, by my extraordinary powers, I have heard about this son and have come immediately, just as the jasmine becomes joyful in spring. In the same way, my eyes become joyful on seeing this child. My breasts spreading auspiciousness everywhere, are flowing with nectar. If the child drinks this nectar, he will attain a perfect body. I will become his nurse and give him happiness." Jiva Goswami. She's actually conversing with Yasoda and Nanda, Yasoda and Rohini. So that was verses 5 and 6. Here's verse number 7. And reference was already made to some of the parts of this verse where he is like covered flame, or like fire covered by ash. So I've color-coded this a little bit. Yadadrichchaya balagrahas tatra vichinvati shashun yadrichchaya. So a little background on this word yadrichchaya. Prabhupada's common translation of yadrichchaya is somehow or other. Somehow or other means we can't see the cause and effect, because generally things of this world, they're effects of some other cause. So what's the cause of that which you don't see the effect of? Well, it's yadrichchaya. In the Bhagavatam, here, it's being indicated as the superior potency of the Lord. We'll see as we're going along, yadrichchaya means that you can't trace out the cause. The cause is inexplicable. So that means it's this transcendental potency of the Supreme Lord. Or his Yogamaya potency, or other language that's been used so far already is Lila Shakti. We had this nice discussion in the morning. Lila Shakti. And what is Lila Shakti? It's a potency by which the Lord's pastimes are arranged. We heard that's in Vrindavan, that's Vrinda. And we can just ask Dina Bandhu all about Vrinda Devi, and we'll find out about Vrinda. So she arranges, Vrinda Devi, or the superior potency of the Lord, or sometimes Yogamaya, or here it's without name, just Yadrichchaya. It's a drama, it's a Lila being arranged by the Lord's spiritual potency. I'll just pause on this for a second, because I have learned something about Ramayana and the word Yadrichchaya in Ramayana. according to the acharyas that comment on Ramayana, in the entire Ramayana by Valmiki, the word Yadrichjaya appears only twice. And they're in pastime changing positions. It's used in relation to Kaikeyi and what Kaikeyi does, because prior to that, it's like lovely. And then Yadrichjaya, it stops being lovely, and it takes a totally different direction. And the explanation is, it's the Lord within the heart of Kaikeyi. It's Rama who's making the arrangements by his expansion of Paramatma within the heart of Kaikeyi to do what she does. He wanted, and so she did. Now it was quite unpleasant, and so forth. And it caused so much grief for everybody. It caused for the death of her husband and so forth and so on. But it's something that Ram wanted for his purposes of appearing in this world. He went to the forest to give his association to the sages in the forest, who were very anxious to see him face to face. So he came face to face. They were seeing him in meditation and offering yajna unto him in their sacrificial ceremonies, but they had come to the stage like the sages in the Dandak forest that wanted to enter into conjugal relation with the Supreme Lord. So later they became, you know all of this, Rishi, Chari, Gopis, and they took part in Krishna's rasa dance. But so he went to give them personal association. And the other was to annihilate the demons, which he did very nicely also, with lots of drama, but they were eliminated. So those two, Pritranaya Saudanam, Vinashaya Chaduskritam, and it was all made possible by Yadrichjaya. The Lord inspired Kaikeyi to do what Kaikeyi did. In one version of Ramayana, it says, when Kaikeyi pronounced the two things, and she just waited to see what is going to be his reaction. And he said, "Is that all, Mother? I'll leave today." And she was taken aback. She didn't expect that. But, of course, it was arranged by him. Now, in his role of teaching as an ideal king, he showed what he was really attached to was not something of this world. He was attached to Dharma, or was attached to truth. Upholding the word of his father was the highest thing for him. He wasn't attached to the temporary. King, go to the forest, comforts. So the second Yadrichjaya in Ramayana is when Shuparnaka came, somehow or another. She went to Panchavati, where the ashram of Ram and Lakshman and Sita was. Yadrichjaya, that was also. So Putana was also Yadrichjaya. Her coming was the Lord's arrangement by his own spiritual potency. He wanted. And he wanted, we discussed this, he wanted many things. And they were all fulfilled because he wanted. And his potencies are acting without any apparent, good reason. Other than he wanted. And he wanted to fulfill a number of things, and they were all fulfilled. Another word that's highlighted is Asad Antakam. Asad Antakam means that she, Putana, understood he was Asad Antakam. He was meant to kill all demons. And it's a little detail, but except for a few demons killed by Balaram, Krishna is the one who killed the demons. And in Balaram's case, sometimes he had a soft spot for demons. Duryodhana, for example. And, he wasn't Putana, he didn't go around killing babies, but he was a demon with demoniac personality. He was opposed. The basic principle of demon is when opposed to the Lord, and being opposed to the Lord's devotees as he was opposed to the Lord. And Balaram was partial to him, which is perplexing. There's an explanation, but back to Krishna's asat antakam, and she understood that just by seeing him. A little light went on. She had mystic powers, and she had the ability to at least discern this much about him. And this other word, agnim ivahitam basi. Agnim means fire, and covered fire, or fire covered by ashes. So the translation of text 7. While searching for small children, Putana, whose business was to kill them, entered the house of Nanda Maharaj unobstructed, being sent by the superior potency of the Lord. So Kamsa gets an assist, but Kamsa sending her was part of the Lord's plan, that she should be sent and she should find him, etc. That's his superior potency. Without asking anyone's permission, she entered Nanda Maharaj's room, where she saw the child sleeping in bed, his unlimited power covered like a powerful fire covered by ashes. We'll hear some commentary on this. She could understand that this child was not ordinary, but was meant to kill all demons. Now, she didn't see all of his potencies because he's covering all of his potencies, but this much she saw. On Monday morning, it's at 6:30 a.m., there's a class with the Chinese devotees, and I'm going to be covering the following topic. Canto 10, Chapter 9, the Damodar Lila chapter, text 13-14. And in that discussion, I'm going to help the Chinese devotees understand what in Krishna's childhood pastimes, how to understand, at least in one aspect, how to understand he's the all-pervading Vishnu, while at the same time he has a Martyalingam, he has a human form that has boundaries. Form indicates, like, here's an arm and it's only so long. It's not unlimitedly long. And Krishna's arm is not unlimitedly long. At the same time, he's all-pervasive. At the same time. So forms are not all-pervasive. It's one of the perplexities or contradictions that causes impersonalists to say he's formless, and he just assumes a form because he can't be both, but he's both. Or just side by side, he's limited and unlimited. So his human-like characteristics don't show his unlimited power. That's what this verse is saying. And those that are accustomed to hearing Prabhupada's lectures will hear it again and again. He is always all-powerful, and he's always omniscient. even when he's just a small infant. Now, commonly Prabhupada would say he was only 3 months old. And consistently Prabhupada would say, when Krishna killed Putana, he was 3 months old. Our acharyas commonly speak that he was 6 days old. So he's very tiny. Whether 6 days or 3 months. Very tiny. But he has all power. But he doesn't show that power. He wasn't showing in his infant form, lying in a bed, or lying in a crib, or whatever he was lying in. When he was asleep. Lord doesn't sleep, but he was asleep. Like later, in chapter 8, this is chapter 6. In chapter 8 is childhood pastimes after the name-giving ceremony, because the name-giving ceremony, specifically our acharyas say, this took place when he was 40 days old, which doesn't coincide with he was 3 months old, but he already killed Putana before the name-giving ceremony, and Trinavarta, which happens next. But in any case, he starts to show little teeth. I mean, not only he has a small form, but he does all the other things that little babies do. When the mothers saw Krishna open his mouth, yawning and whatever, they saw little teeth, and they were delighted. Mothers seeing little teeth coming in the mouth of a little baby. Oh, look at that. So he's doing all these things. As if he's a small child like the son of Nanda and Yasoda. But he's not. The person, it's a mystery. So when she saw him, she was like, his unlimited power was covered like a powerful fire covered by ash. There's the powerful fire covered by ash. And then on the right side, there's Putana. And with everything but a lotus flower in her hand, the picture is illustrating the jasmine flowers in her hair and her ornaments and all of her bodily descriptions. It's a nice painting. But the emphasis, at least in the image here, is he was like a covered flame, covered by ash. Putana saw baby Krishna. This is Ananda Vrindavan Champu. As a spark of a powerful fire, capable of burning the sum total of all misfortune to ashes. That boy shone like the transcendental flame of a lamp, competent of subduing all enemies produced by the dense darkness of night. Continuing Ananda Vrindavan Champu, he was just like another Agastya Rishi who could easily swallow the deadly ocean of poison represented by material existence. Baby Krishna lay on a bed as white as the rays of the full moon, or the foam produced from churning the ocean of milk. The baby looked like a great emerald sprouting from a field of powdered camphor. Kavi Karnapur likes poetic imagery. Here's Jiva Goswami commenting on this verse. She searched out babies in Gokula without having to make effort. Yadrich Chaya. Since she was inspired by Lila Shakti. So there we are again. Devotees are moved by Lila Shakti, by Yogamaya potency. And here we have Putana. She's a pawn on Krishna's chessboard. She's moving according to his indication, although she's not thinking, I want to do what Krishna wants. He's engaging her. Suddenly, coming to Nanda's house while searching, she saw Krishna on the bed. She thought the child was the death to demons. Though the child was the death to demons, he manifested his sweetness at this time. She saw him on the bed while he hid his powers in front of her. An example is given. He was like a fire covered by ashes. That she attracted all people of Braja is the action of Lila Shakti. So that was one of the questions in the morning session. How was she able to do all this, and why couldn't they detect anything? Well, they couldn't detect anything because of Lila Shakti, and she appeared attractive as she did by Lila Shakti. She had her mystic powers, but it was like, it was made effective even in Vrindavan because of the action of Lila Shakti. And now we're going to hear from Sanatana Goswami. Searching for children in Gokula, she saw the child who was performing childhood pastimes, Balam, who puts an end to demons and who was sleeping, Ahitam, on a bed. This also excludes Balaram as the child described, since he sometimes overlooks the demons. That's his Asad Antakam message. Sanatana Goswami is indicating. He wasn't involved because he's sometimes, it's okay. Balaram was in Rohini's house. Balam indicates that Krishna was performing Bala pastimes, as is his nature, or it expresses Shukadev's special bhakti. Krishna caused the great power of Putana to be destroyed. Pratichana Nijoru Tejas Amur. This indicates his great power. An example is given. It was like a fire hidden in charcoal. The charcoal can manifest the intense burning of fire. Another nice painting. Did she not become fearful? Why was such an evil person able to see the Lord? Answer: it was because of the manifestation of the Lord's power, Yadurich. This reason is also apparent later. She also dressed up attractively as a cowherd woman. So the women thought she was Lakshmi. They did not prevent her from approaching. Here's something from a Back to Godhead article on the Putana Lila. It's well written. Putana's understanding is very significant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is situated in everyone's heart. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that he gives one necessary intelligence, and he also causes one to forget. Putana was immediately aware that the child whom she was observing in the house of Nanda Maharaj was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. He was lying there as a small baby, but that does not mean that he was less powerful. The materialistic theory that God worship is anthropomorphic is not correct. No living being can become God by undergoing meditation or austerities. God is always God. Anyone who has listened to Prabhupada's lectures knows that this was one of his favorite topics. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time remembering Prabhupada and remembering Prabhupada's message on this topic. Many misconceptions are popular many people are atheists, and those people that consider themselves to be spiritual these days think that they have an idea they can become one with God. I remember visiting one university, invited to speak at a class, and spoke at the class, and right after the class, one bright-faced young American kid came up and said, with a big smile, "We're all God." I mean, right, completely in contradiction to everything that he had heard. And so it's the conversation. I remember the conversation, but how foolish. But there are many people who consider themselves to be spiritual in orientation that are in another kind of foolish, besides thinking the body to be the self. Or that they can become one with God and thus become God, and thereby in different ways imitate Krishna's activities, particularly the Rasa Lila activities, and that's part of spirituality. Or they become a yogi and by mystic powers become God and pretend to people, or etc. And apparently, and I'm not so knowledgeable about this, but apparently during Prabhupada's time, maybe it's also true today, but there were, a number of personalities of Godhead moving around in India at the time by some mystic power claiming to be God, or the followers claiming that they were God and they were just nodding their head and so forth. So the misunderstanding or the cheating tendency doesn't stop with business affairs of this world. It goes into the spiritual realm, which is also part of the whole Putana Lila. Bhaktivinoda, at the end of this whole section, will discuss what Bhaktivinoda and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur say about what Putana represents as false teachers and false teachings. But so she was deluded, or others may be deluded into thinking that Krishna was something that one can become more powerful than. It's hard to understand how people can think like that. One of the bewildering sections of the Bhagavatam is when Hiranyaksha is killed and Hiranyakashipu is performing his funeral rites, and he describes very clearly that he understands Lord Vishnu is supreme, and then he turns right around and he becomes he's my enemy, I'm going to kill him. Or, does Putana really understand that Krishna is the personality of Godhead, or does she just see him as a small child? It's clear. The verse states he's meant to kill all demons, and she's a demon, so he's meant to kill her, and she goes ahead anyways. It's really surprising. So there's peers simultaneously Yogamaya acting to bring her to Krishna so he can kill her, and Mahamaya that she can see but she can't see. She's deluded into thinking he's meant to kill all demons, I'm going to kill him. It doesn't make sense. I mean, if she is just like a dull person, but she's not just a dull person, she's a mystic and does that So Maya is very powerful, not just for dull people. Maya is very powerful for powerful people. Maya has persons all over the place. Not only, how powerful is Maya, who can say? The deluding potency has all living entities. Just, consider all the living entities. That you can't, how many are all the living entities? And they're all deluded by the potency of thinking that they're something they're not. And it arises from what? It arises from a demoniac spirit. That is, I want to enjoy separately from one who is the supreme enjoyer. And that's the demoniac spirit. And so one is covered by Maya. And once you're covered by Maya, to get free from Maya, it's not easy, even when you're trying. But how many living entities are under illusion? And then in the human form, and amongst those in the human form, those that are following, you go, up the pyramid, those that are unregulated, those that are regulated by codes of the Vedas, to have a proper conception of divinity, to understand, Manusha Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye, even amongst the Siddhas, to find someone who's striving, someone who becomes, and someone who becomes to understand Krishna and truth. So Maya is very powerful. And Putana is an agent. Powerful. We read some earlier sections quoting Vishnu Purana. Our acharyas point out that she really knew poison. And amongst poisons, she knew which was the most virile poison. So as soon as the child she touched, or whose mouth accepted the poison from her breast, instantly they would die. I mean, some poisons, it takes a while. We read about that with Socrates. Hemlock took a while. But some poisons, they're instant. And she knew. Instant. And that's what she was using with Krishna. It's like the poison cake that was fed to Bhima. Enough poison to kill 10 men. He did become poisoned. Krishna protected him. The power of the illusory energy is very significant. And Putana is going to get the mercy in a very interesting drama. So we start a little bit late. My apology, it's my fault. They were already, I was late. But it's already 7:35. So I think I'm going to end there, and we'll continue tomorrow morning. The rest of the Putana Lila. So is anybody in the room would like to have some discussion? And then we'll go to the online topics. Okay.
The Supreme Lord's Lila potency that was orchestrating all this.
Yes.
At the same time, the the Lord's Leela potency seems to be also having this bewildering functionality or feature, just like the material energy bewilders. So, is there any description on how the Leela potency is acting like that? Like maybe because we have some description about the material energy from Bhagavad Gita. So to me, it looks like the Leela potency is the spiritual potency of the Supreme Lord, but at the same time, it's also doing something that the material.
Powerful equipment he's got there. Touch it, the wrong button and something happens. Go ahead, keep going. I think I got the picture. Well, the word Maya holds the key, Yogamaya and Mahamaya. So Maya is that which is not. So the Yogamaya potency on the one hand, or one dimension of it, is it facilitates pastimes, and the other is one doesn't see him as he is. So it's acting with Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda, for example. They don't see him as the personality of Godhead, and it's acting in a different way with Putana. She sees, but she doesn't see. But it's moving the Leela forward and diluting. Anyone else? Okay, so we have something online. We've been having a very active online session. Back behind you. You'd rather not have the portable one, huh?
Hi, Krishna. This is from Ananda Vrindavan from India.
Hi, Bolananda Vrindavan.
How do we as sadhakas protect ourselves from becoming bewildered by people who exhibit material accomplishments in this world?
By Krishna consciousness. And, by Krishna consciousness, meaning if someone is accomplished in the material world, where's that accomplishment coming from? In one sense, it's the fruit of their piety, but the source is not just their piety. The source is the source of everything. And that source of everything can give and can take away that opulence or that ability or that something. So if you're attentive to Krishna, just like chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, the opulence of the Absolute, if there's some vibhuti or something wonderful in this world, see it as it's come from Krishna. Now, how is that vibhuti or something that's come from Krishna being used? It depends on the consciousness, the present consciousness, because Krishna is also the cheating of the cheats. So you might find somebody who's really good at cheating, and that's another opulence. But whatever there is that's an opulence, see how it's connected to Krishna, and all credit and all appreciation goes to Krishna. That's a spiritual answer to the question. How to not become bewildered when somebody shows some excellence in the material field.
Next question is from Atulya. As Putana knew that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and yet her actions showed that she did not. Similarly, Kamsa was very apologetic to Devaki and Vasudeva, just before this pastime takes place and shares spiritual knowledge, but right after that, he posed so hard-hearted that he ordered Putana to kill all newborn. How to understand Kamsa being soft-hearted and hard-hearted at the same time?
Was not at the same time. He's a demon, and that he released Vasudeva, apologized. Gee, I'm sorry, I killed your 6 children. Okay. So, what it says in the Bhagavatam, chapter 4, I believe it is, Canto 10, is he had a conversation and he felt sorry. He apologized for killing their children. It's not exactly soft-hearted. He was apologetic. Maybe he was more fearful of what Durga might do because of what he had done. Because Durga punishes. But, that didn't last long. He was advised by his ministers differently, and so forth. And Narada's visit. So, his releasing them and asking for their forgiveness, making an apology, I don't know, momentary lapse, not so genuine, because his real disposition comes out not right away, and there's no limit to his atrocities. That's his nature. So a lapse either out of fear, what Durga might do, obviously not some genuine contrition, because who can do what he did and just say, gee, I'm sorry, sister, and move on. So some momentary contrition or to assist the pastimes. But his real spirit is what's, the reason why Krishna appeared to kill him.
Next question is from Snehali Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, just to confirm the understanding, so the attraction of Brajavasis towards Putana was due to Lila Shakti's arrangement, because it's surprising to see that the devotee on the Prema Bhakti level getting attracted by material attraction.
They weren't attracted by, they were respectful towards. If they thought she was a queen or the consort of Indra or Varuna, etc., they have regard for the demigods. They have regard for the goddess of fortune. They have regard for those who they consider to be elevated to themselves. That's a natural disposition within them. And so she decorated herself in such a way they were thinking that way, but that's also a bigger part of Lila Shakti. So one can say it both ways, or just one way, it's just Lila Shakti. Because otherwise, how could they weren't attracted to, but they were respectful towards. They weren't, wishing, gee, we wish we had some opulence like that. They were respectful towards one who shows the kind of opulence, extraordinary opulence that she was demonstrating. It's a little bit like when Nanda comes back from the abode of Varuna. He described to the elders the level of opulence in the heavenly region that Varuna was displaying, and he was astonished. So she was exhibiting some similar astonishing level of beauty and ornamentation and so forth and so on, and motherly affection. So they were a bit in awe, not attracted to.
This is from Ankita from Naperville. Hare Krishna Maharaj, if all the sadhus during Ramayana Lila came back as gopis, who were all the princesses who became queens of Dwarka?
Well, it doesn't say all the rishis became gopis. That's not my understanding, at least. Some group in some part of the Dandak forest had that specific request, and that's. But who became the princesses that were kidnapped? That's what her asking. Who were they before they were princesses? That's her question. I don't recall who they were before, but I don't think it has anything to do with Ram Lila. Those, the Rishичari personalities became gopis, and these became queens. So who they were previously. There's probably something in Rupa Goswami's dramas, the Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, that I'm not familiar with. I haven't studied, I've read portions, but I'm not familiar with his explanation. So in one sense, they were gopis that later became queens. But the details of that, I don't recall. Do you recall? No. So if the person asking this question can read Vidagdha Madhava and get Rupa Goswami's answer to that question.
It's from Sakshi Gopal Prabhu in Virginia. Is there any significance resembling our qualities from Putana's behavior that as a devotee we should be watchful, as a practicing devotee should be watchful?
I didn't get the first part. Is there something in what she's doing that tells us we should be watchful in our own devotional service?
Yeah, basically, is there any connection, resemblance between what Putana is displaying and what we can be watchful as sadhakas?
Well, a topic that's come up several times already is deceptiveness or duplicity. She is one thing and she's pretending to be another thing. So that's certainly something that she was up to that we should be aware of or be vigilant about. According to Bhakti Sandarbha, the appearance of duplicity is the first sign of anartha. Knowingly, or even unknowingly, unconsciously, being deceptive. So that's something we should be very vigilant for, because it has direct bearing on our process of anartha nivritti. And the antidote is, be honest, be straightforward.
Next is from Tharani Radha Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, in the Gita, Krishna says, it's only due to lust that a soul who acts wrongly, even after being aware of what's wrong and right. Is this the same with Putana? Knowing that baby Krishna was the Supreme Lord, she still went ahead to kill him? Or was it just part of Krishna's desire to give happiness to Vrajavasis that she acted that way?
Well, it's not either or. I think it's both. She had a disposition. She had, from her previous life, she had a mixed disposition. and there was one and there was the other going on simultaneously. You know, to have the mood of a mother and want to kill the child, that's conflicting emotions. She, lived with conflicting emotions. So that was just her personality. And it was also pastime to act that way.
Sanchari is asking, Guru Maharaj, what's the difference between demons who act according to Lila Shakti and those that act according to demoniac nature?
Well, the world is filled, using the formula that Srila Prabhupada would speak of regularly, is very clear cut. You accept the personality of Godhead? No, demon. The world is filled with demons on that principle. Do you accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So, acting under, that's not a Lila Shakti occurrence. The people that are doing in the name of religion, the pseudo-religion, or the atheist, or the this, or the that, the materialist, or whatever, the position of opposition to or not acceptance of the personality of Godhead, that's not Lila Shakti. And Lila Shakti is, there's a pastime of the Lord being enacted, and one carries out a certain function under the influence of Lila Shakti. So there's a distinction between the two.
Chandramukhi Mataji from Naperville. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, if Putana was Kamsa's sister, it means that Devaki is her sister. Was Putana aware that Krishna is her nephew?
Putana was, say it again.
If Putana was Kamsa's sister, it means that Devaki is her sister. Was Putana aware that Krishna is her nephew?
Oh, I don't know what she's aware of.
Sachi Sutta Prabhu from Nepal. This may have been addressed and I missed it. What makes Ratnamala Putana attracted to Vamana with a desire to feed him, and how that attraction transformed to enmity to kill him?
If I understand the question, it's not focusing on Putana, it's focusing on Ratnamala. And her first sight of the Lord in this dwarf Brahmana feature was one of motherly affection towards this dwarf Brahmana who was the Supreme Lord, all attractive, and all of the nature of the attractiveness of the Supreme Lord, although he was in such a form. Like it said, even with Lord Varaha, he was attractive. Or Kurma, he was attractive. Or Matsya, he was attractive. In a transcendental kind of attractive, not like, the material kind of attractive, without going into it. The Anthony and Cleopatra, one beautiful bodily features kind of thing. But it's spiritual attractive. She was attracted as a mother is attracted to a small child. Only in this case, it was the personality of Godhead. So that was a capacity within her, or a feature in her consciousness. But then there was the anger when she saw her brother was tied up in a rope, or her father was tied up in a rope. And then that produced the anger. So both features were there by those two prompts, external prompts, and they were being carried in her heart. I think that answers. Does that address the question? I'm not sure. Okay.
The next question both Ratnavali and Radhika Priya from St. Louis, they have the same question. All gopis concluded that Putana is the goddess of fortune and came to see her husband Narayan. Does that mean that gopis know that Krishna is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Absolutely not.
As they're always covered by Lila Shakti to perform the pastimes, I mean to say, gopis forget who Krishna is and perform the Lila. So how come they compare him with Narayan?
They don't compare Krishna to Narayan.
Vilasa Manjari Mataji, can I understand Yoga Maya? Sorry, it just moved. Oops. Message was retracted. The message was retracted, so I can't see it anymore.
Okay. You're searching? Can you finding? Ah. Now it's showing up again. Here, she's...
No. So this is Ratnavali is what you said to me.
Vilasa Manjari Mataji's question is, can I understand Yogamaya as that which deludes us towards Krishna and Mahamaya as that which deludes us away from Krishna?
Not exactly. Mahamaya is that which covers our understanding of who Krishna is and thinks him just ignores him. Yogamaya is meant specifically to enhance the interaction with Krishna while at the same time not recognizing his divinity. Is that clear? Vilasa Manjari, if you want to have further follow-up on that, please send it in, because I think I've answered your question. Anything else? We're about to close up. Anything back there? No? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. 8 o'clock.